I've never played a Sonic game before, but I recently watched the movies and they were fun, although sometimes they definitely weren't the best. But they did make me actually want to play through a Sonic game, so fast forward to now, and yeah, I decided to play through Sonic Colors for the very first time. Why Colors? Well, 1, I heard it's good, and 2, it's short, so it's not a huge commitment. Makes it a good choice to start out with. When you open the game, you are immediately greeted with an intro video, which I liked a lot. Also, the music is really good. It's Sonic though. I might not have played one of these games before, but even I know the music always slaps, and this game is no exception. Every track in this game is so good. I especially like the songs for Planet Wisp. Anyways, once you're past the intro, you get to change some very limited settings and then bam, you're in the game. I won't lie, I struggled a lot at first because I've never played one of these games before, but also because I'm just straight up bad at games. It also didn't help that I turned off the optional aid you're prompted with at the start, so I went in totally blind to any of the controls. So there was a lot of me getting stuck in the early hours because I either forgot about something I could do, or I was completely oblivious to a new mechanic the game was trying to teach me, because I willingly turned off this option which would have told me these things. In hindsight, I probably should have put it on, but I didn't because I was scared it was going to hold my hand throughout the entire game. When playing through the levels, I wasn't really going for S ranks. I didn't go super slow, but I also wasn't speedrunning either. As soon as the game begins, you are introduced to the concept of wisps. Wisps are little aliens that give you different abilities you can use. You got a wisp that can make you move like a laser so you bounce off walls to get somewhere you couldn't. There's one that turns you into this green thing that lets you float and gravitate towards coins. A wisp that turns these blue rings into blocks and vice versa. And my personal favorite, the one that lets you turn into a shark and demolish everything in sight. I also really like the one that turns you into a ghost and lets you phase through walls. It's really underutilized though. I guess that makes sense though, because it wasn't in the original game. It's actually really strange that they added a whole new mechanic to the remaster, considering that doing that sort of thing risks breaking a game's design. But for the Ghost Wisp, it's not that big of a deal. I have some thoughts on the remaster, but I'll touch on that a bit later. There are 7 worlds which all include a bunch of levels called acts. Each level or act of a world generally starts by teaching you the mechanics of a new wisp, and builds upon that with obstacles that can only be cleared with that wisp, with hidden pathways that can only be accessed with your new power to reward exploration. Of course, every level adds new obstacles that challenge you, ranging from simple stuff like spikes and lasers to more complex stuff like inverting gravity. It's really fun and the design never feels cheap. But it's not perfect, as there were a few times where I felt the game definitely could have done better, and I think the world that suffers the most is the aquarium. The aquarium drags things to a crawl. As everyone knows, Sonic can't swim, so he basically loses all momentum underwater, so you end up being stuck just mashing the A button to get out of the water so you can move. I think the world also just had the least interesting mechanics. Its whole thing was basically, oh, it's the basics of the normal game, but underwater. It really sucks because I think aesthetically the aquarium was my favorite, but the design was so bad. Like there was this one runaway segment which really frustrated me because I don't know how you're supposed to dodge this guy normally. So the only way I was able to make it through was saving my boost until the end so I can use it sparingly and just narrowly stay out of his reach. There's no way I could anticipate that I would need to do that, so I ended up having to redo the whole level just to get enough boost to make that segment bearable. I shouldn't have to play the game this way. Luckily, the rest of the worlds were incredibly solid and I had a blast going through them. The game uses a blend of 2D and 3D level design, and I think it pulls it off pretty well. For the 3D parts, you got stuff like sliding around on wavy tracks, rail grinding, and these segments where you lose your ability to move around freely and can only move in a set of lanes. And to change lanes, you nudge the stick in the direction of the lane you want to switch to. It reminds me a bit of drag racing from the black box era of Need for Speed. For 2D segments, it's more traditional platforming. It feels like a spin on Mario, which I really like. You move forward, jump onto platforms, and avoid obstacles. It's simple, and it's cool too because if you're good, which I'm not, you can skip entire sections of levels with well-timed boosts. Stuff like this is probably really satisfying to pull off, and I think that's the main appeal of Sonic. Trying to get through the course as quickly as possible is really fun. The controls are also snappy and responsive. I can't say what it was like on the Wii since I never played it, but I only had one issue with the controls here, which I completely understand why it had to be that way. It's the camera. The camera in this game is really bad. Now, I get why this had to be the case in the original since the game launched on the Wii. And if you notice, the Wii Remote and Nunchuck don't have two analog sticks, so they had to work with what they got and make the camera automatic. Nothing wrong with that at all. My main issue with it is that it's not very smooth and it snaps to a position half the time and completely disorients me. I feel like it's most noticeable whenever you use the laser power-up. It's like you just teleport when you use this thing, and I end up basically asking myself every single time I use it, what the fuck happened? I'm not sure if this can be completely fixed by just giving camera controls to the right stick. It would definitely help, but I feel this game could have also used a button to recenter the camera like in Zelda. The game only uses a handful of buttons on your controller, so they definitely could have added something like this, and I feel like it would have helped a lot. Maybe it's just me though. Now, the story. I never really expected very much since Sonic is a platformer, so I wasn't surprised when the story started taking a bit of a back seat here. But what is here is fun. The premise is simple. Dr. Robotnik is running a space amusement park, which is sick, but there's one problem. He may or may not be using it to capture wisps to power his mind control weapon. So Sonic goes to each planet, takes out a big robot, saves the wisps, and eventually defeats Robotnik. There really isn't that much more to it, but again, it's not really a bad thing. It's simple and it's goofy. I like that it doesn't take itself seriously at all. If it tried to, it probably would have fallen flat, no question. But they don't do that, and it's actually pretty funny sometimes.
Your plans have been crushed by Sonic for like, ever. He stops you like it's his job or something. In fact, I can't remember a plan he didn't stop.
What are you talking about? He hasn't stopped all of them.
Name one.
Way to pay attention, pal.
Thank you, buddy! Hey, my voice! It's back! All right!
Ah, there's the sweet sound my auditory processors know and love.
Now I remember why we changed his voice chip.
Now, I have been playing the remaster Colors Ultimate, which I think is an inoffensive re-release. It doesn't destroy the original game, but it also doesn't do much to improve it either. There are some things about this release that left me confused. The most noticeable thing to me was the pre-rendered cutscenes. These clearly had no work put here at all. It's really disappointing that these cutscenes were just straight up ported, low resolution and all, and it's distracting with how bad they look in contrast with the game. The game itself also suffers a bit graphically, since they gave it the old bloom treatment. This is when devs will just crank up the bloom to 11 on remasters to make it look artificially better, and maybe hide the fact that nothing else has changed. The bloom just makes this game look a bit hazy, and so I think the original game does look better when upscaled on Dolphin. It's a pretty low effort remaster, but again, it's still Sonic Colors as you know it. The game actually looks very good for a Wii game, so it could have been much worse. Much worse. At least you don't need mods to make the game playable. Speaking of mods though, there is a mod for Ultimate that basically touches up the remaster to look a lot better. It's called Project Re-Rainbow, and it's pretty cool. They've touched up the lighting, improved textures, and even updated Sonic's model. I'll leave a link for it in the description if you're interested. So yeah, that's Sonic Colors. I actually really like the game, and I definitely want to play more Sonic games in the future. The gameplay was solid and the story was fun, albeit a bit short. I actually would have liked it if the game was a bit longer, but I'll be happy to pick this game up again and play through my favorite stages on my own time. Maybe I'll pick up Unleashed or Generations or something like that next. I hear those ones are pretty good. I missed out on this whole series growing up, so let me know in the comments your first Sonic game and share a fun memory or recommend a game to play next. I'm generally interested in your stories and recommendations. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, consider subscribing. It helps me a lot as it helps spread my content to more people, and it helps you as you get more from me in the future. It really is a win-win. I really do appreciate what you guys do. That's all for now. I'll see you in the next one.